Elizabeth will be presenting her second speech of her farming fantasy speech today. The objective of her speech is to incorporate the suggestions made by her evaluator in her last speech, or better put, the purpose of the speech is for the member to demonstrate that he or she has applied the feedback received from his or her first speech. So the time of her speech, since she's the only speaker, is going to be 8 to 10 minutes long. Everyone, let's go ahead and please welcome Elizabeth.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. I hope to present this presentation without being too much of a flibberty-gibbet. Since I have additional time, I requested to go a little bit longer in order to fulfill my evaluator's suggestion last week that I stay within the time frame. For those of you who weren't here, and that was probably just Eleanor, I'm going to review, I think you were here, Eleanor. But anyway, I'm going to review just a little bit my farming fantasy. As I mentioned to you last time, I had a dream that maybe I could be a farmer someday, or the farmer's wife. And I wanted a little tractor. That's always a big help. And as you remember, I found out I had a portion of land behind my house, and this is what it looked like. And this is what we transformed it into. Took a lot of sweat, a lot of time, a lot of labor. The second year, we got a little bit of fruit. There was more than this, but this is just a little taste of what we had. And my garden was going just fantastic, and I would sit in the back and look at all the little critters that were in my yard, and beautiful birds and rabbits, and this cute, cute little squirrely squirrel. But I started to notice the next year that we had a good number of squirrels that had appeared that we didn't have last year. So I realized these little critters were multiplying. By the second, third, fourth year, they became a little monster. They had fooled me. They were nothing but rodents, and they had a lot of bad intentions in my yard. So I decided I need to get educated and find out what was going on with these squirrels. And I found this nice quote by Nelson Mandela: "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." So I decided to start reading up about squirrels. I found out that there are tree squirrels, and this is not what I have in my backyard. These critters like to eat mainly seeds and nuts, and they like to live in the trees. The kind I had in my backyard were the ground squirrels. These are some of the facts about them, and some of them I found were false and some were true. The ones that were false was that you hardly ever see them. I see them all the time in my backyard, and they're everywhere. They do live in colonies, and they like to burrow and make holes in your yard, and the rattlesnakes and rats like to live in them as well. They like to eat a lot before they hibernate in the winter. This is true. In the spring, they typically eat seeds. This is false. They like to eat my trees and all the fruit that is on them. They actually can tunnel. They found one tunnel, 741 feet long. And inside these tunnels, they have nurseries, storage rooms, sleep chambers, and who knows what else. While these ground squirrels live in the ground, that doesn't mean that they can't climb. And they truly, very truly prove that with my trees. So as you can see, they like to eat everything growing in my garden. They eat my peaches, my apples, my oranges, my tomatoes, my cactus, and my dragon fruit. They even eat things that I don't grow in my yard. This was a real surprise. I realized that these critters were proud, shameless, and persistent. They just don't know how to give up. They kept coming back year after year and in greater number, and they were just such an annoyance. Here on the left, you can see my peach tree. And if you notice, It's got a fence around it. It's got netting on the top. It's got stones all the way around it. And lastly, we put in a spiked border that went into the ground. Every time we tried something, they figured it out. They'd climb over, they'd climb under, they tore through, and they just knew how to get there. And the most bothersome thing to me was that they like to eat the fruit as it's growing, and they wait until some of it is partially ripened, and they chew on that part and leave the rest of the fruit hanging. Now, I thought that was very unfair. If you're going to eat it all and leave me the rest. Here are some of the remnant peaches that we picked this year, because I had to go in and get them before they were ripened. So it was a battle between me and that rodent. Here is my tree this year. I took off the netting, I took off the fencing. We still have the border around there, and I pruned it down, and now it's growing again. But I was somewhat frustrated. I talked to Eleanor about this, and she had a suggestion because I was looking for solutions. She said, why don't you get a dog? Why don't you take Coco for a little while? I thought about it, and I thought, oh, poor Coco. I think you'd be a loser in my backyard. There's just too many of them, and you wouldn't be able to survive. You would be a loser for sure in my backyard. Then I had another solution. I thought, hey, I used to watch Annie Oakley on TV when I was a kid, and I just loved that series, and I loved the way she could use her rifle. And I thought, I'm gonna go get me a BB gun. I'm gonna get some pellets, and I'm gonna practice on those little critters in my backyard. Thought about it a lot, and I shared it with Ron. Ron had a better idea. It had something to do with pellets, but he said, I'm gonna order a kaput, ground squirrel bait, and a dispenser. And this is what you see here. And then I'm gonna call them to dinner. Well, he just did just that. And it wasn't long before we saw lines on either side of the entrance to the dispensers. And they were fighting with each other to get inside. And the lines were long, kind of like when you went to Costco when they were running out of toilet paper. I was pretty impressed that this thing was working. So I watched this every morning from my upstairs bedroom window, and I could see that they were starting to become fewer and fewer. And I was getting really happy and excited that Ron's idea had worked. A couple of weeks went by, and I looked out, and then I saw, hey, there's hardly any. But the next day, I saw a new crowd, a new breed, and they were ground squirrels, just younger and a little more energetic. And they were into this squirrel bait and loved it. I watched them as the weeks went by, and then I started to consider, hey, I think mommy and daddy are gone, and these are the babies. But how come the babies are so fat? So then I had a thought, but I didn't like the thought. I was wondering something about the habits of these ground squirrels. So I decided to go back and do a little more research and get educated some more. And this is what I found out. Ground squirrels are known to be cannibalistic. Aha! My thought was true. This means that they will eat their own kind, and they have been witnessed by many eating their dead. Oftentimes they will start with the brains, eyes, or intestines and work their way to the stomach and other organs. Anybody want to be a groundhog for Halloween? actually, here is a true picture of a hunter who went out and was killing some of these ground squirrels by an old oak tree. And he came back later and he found the younger squirrels eating and doing their cannibalistic thing. I was very upset, as you can imagine. I was just wondering, what shall we do here? Shall I give up my farm? Can we just continue to keep trying to get rid of them? Will it ever end? I thought, no, this is a species that will never become extinct. So I realized I was just pitying myself. I was having a pity party. I was a sore loser. And I just decided that instead of doing that, I needed to focus in on another garden that I have. And that's a garden that has a thankful tree in it. And I decided I would think about all the things I was thankful for. I was thankful that I had the experience to have a small plot of land, that I was able to clear the land, to get some trees, to plant them, to learn how to nurture and water and cherish these little trees, and to watch them flourish and even have some very nice fruit that was so tasty and wonderful. It was drawing all of these ground squirrels out of the ground. And I decided I would just be very thankful that I had had the opportunity to experience what it is like to have a tree farm. I experienced all these wonderful things of being in the outdoors and watching all these animals. And I realized I just need to learn to give thanks for all things. And one of the things in particular I realized I was thankful for was that we have many farmers markets, and I am going to visit them from now on.